Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sidelined, the podcast to get your fix while sports are in limbo. Here are your hosts, Abby Labar, Carlin Baith, and yours truly, John Root.
Welcome back to another week of Sideline, guys. So thankful for all of your support, and we continue to have amazing guests here on our show. And this week, well, I personally love her just because she has red hair, but I'm not biased or anything, right? LG Red, you guys know her on Twitter as that. Lauren Gardner, she is with DAZN, she's with NHL Network, and she has been around the block and back in this industry, covering everything from hockey to sidelining for football to lingerie football. Like, the crazy experiences she's had in this industry have only continued to shape the woman she is and the role model she is for so many of us that are continuing to work our way up.
Adding to that list, she is an in-arena host alum like myself, and I know you two share that in common as well. And there's just something special and different about someone who's had that live in-arena hosting experience, and it's nice to hear yet another person in this position who's used that as a marker on their paved road to where they are now.
And she has such a wild journey too. We talk about that in every single episode, hearing about the background of different guests, and that has taken her to the big city in New York. And she really opened up about what it's like to be in the big city and go from a place like Denver to New York, and especially what's going on in society right now too, and how that coincides with sports and how she's able to integrate that in some of her work she's doing in the NHL, boxing, and all over the place. So we had a great chat with that to start out with. So let's get this party started. Thanks for listening.
Well, guys, I've been waiting for this moment to have another redhead join us here on Sideline. So we welcome LG Red, Lauren Gardner. We're so happy that you're here joining us. Will you go ahead and tell all of our viewers and listeners where you're at right now and what you've been up to?
Hi, friends. Well, I obviously misunderstood the assignment, thinking that this was audio only. So I'm fresh out of the shower.
You look great, LG.
She looks beautiful.
I love you guys. Well, you guys all look fantastic. I'm currently in New York City, so we're slowly beginning the reopening process. And it's circling back to the appearance thing. I think it's actually really important to kind of like pull back the curtain and show everyone that we're all just people, you know, behind all the makeup and the glitz and the glam and the hair and all that jazz. Like, we're all people and we love talking about sports. And so I was almost like hesitant. I'm like, guys, should I push it back and get ready? And I was like, no, I think it's important for people just to see us as we are. So here we are.
I don't even remember how to put my makeup on half the time because I only do it for this recording and that's about it. Right? I forget I have it on half the time. I'm rubbing my face. I'm like, oh wait, I have stuff on my face. I forget.
This is John's favorite part of every podcast where we just talk hair and makeup, and he sits there and nods. He's like, "Yep,
I get it."
John,
no idea what they're talking about.
Do not act like you don't put some serious time and effort into that flow.
Oh,
I know there's
beautiful.
a round brush,
has to.
maybe some mousse and a hair dryer.
Yeah, what's the secret? Let's turn the interview around.
We've never gotten the secret.
We
really haven't.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I can give away a secret this early in my career. You know, I got to hold on to that for a little bit. But also, I'll tell you this, LG, if someone takes a long time to do their hair, they got a bad haircut. That's the secret.
Oh, so the haircut is key. That's what you're saying.
But hey, a little blow dry, a little mousse. I do have a round brush. You do know me.
Called it. It's a great flow. I mean, I'm not knocking it. I have hair envy right now, as you can tell.
2 episodes that I've gotten just huge shout out about
back
the flow.
to back.
Holy smokes, I feel good about myself.
As you should.
We need to do more episodes like this.
Yeah.
Every guest, we need to say something about my flow. But we'll go back to you being in New York right now. Obviously, it is a crazy place to be, and we're all dealing with quarantine. We're dealing with COVID, and does that take a toll on you, mentally and physically, knowing that you're in a place? Obviously, you have you're in the big city, you have a great job, and it's an exciting place to be most of the time. But has that kind of been difficult to deal with, especially with what the nation's going through in the world?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think this is almost threefold. First, I spent 6 weeks back in Colorado with my family, which was just an amazing time. You know, everyone was at home together. Is something that otherwise would have never happened. And I'm so thankful for that. And then after 6 weeks, it was like, okay, it's probably time to get back to some, semblance of normalcy, so to speak. So I've been back here for almost 6 weeks, and I was so lucky to have a neighbor and one of our producers at MLB Network that he literally lives across the street from me.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we've been able to go on a lot of social distance walks in Central Park. And so it's not like we're directly confined to like our respective, like, shoebox apartments, as
Yeah.
you guys may or may not know. They can't get a whole lot for your money here in New York City.
Do you have windows at least in your living room?
Yes.
Okay,
Oh,
that's
I
all
have
that matters.
windows. I'm so
That's all that matters.
thankful. I
Yeah.
have great views. Like, that was a priority. So I feel extremely fortunate that I had the luxury and the privilege to be able to stay safe and to practice social distancing and to be in a place where I can exercise all those precautions. And as far as a lot of the civil unrest taking place, obviously a lot has been going on here in New York City. And yeah, there were times when it was somewhat unnerving. But as you guys well know, New York City is a melting pot of cultures, religions, backgrounds, races. And I am so privileged to have a lot of friends of color, and a lot of those conversations that took place following the death of George Floyd were very illuminating and eye-opening. And just, to hear those stories from your friends, from people who, you wouldn't have otherwise had those conversations with, I think it was just so eye-opening, and it just like opened the floodgates for, education and for all of us, and, to go out and support this cause and to, hopefully be part of this change. But it started with those conversations. So yeah, it was crazy, but I honestly believe that hopefully this will be this like pivotal moment in not just our country, but our world, for positive change. So it's definitely been interesting though, being at the epicenter. Like, you want to be right in the middle of it. I mean, things were boarded up. We were under curfew. The police presence was crazy. And yeah, we were just kind of trying to navigate it all. But I'm very fortunate to be safe and, yeah, again, have that privilege.
Do you feel like you're able to still focus on the jobs at hand as well? Because I think sometimes we get in these spaces that we're not just going to focus on sports. We have a pandemic, we got social or societal unrest, and we still got jobs to do. And when people tune into like the NHL Network or DAZN, they're going to be like, hey, I know there's a lot going on, but I still want to hear about what's going on in sports. And they want to know that you're like calm, cool, and collected. Has that kind of been difficult during this time to like really hone in on that stuff?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's one of those things where, number one, as you guys will know, none of these sports are underway. So it's not like I've had assignments every single day. We haven't been going into studio. Everything's been virtual. And my assignments were kind of few and far between. So I will say though, during like, those 3 weeks of, the Black Lives Matter protests, it didn't seem right when there's so much social injustice that's like at the forefront of our minds and, just of the world, to do anything that didn't have anything to do with that cause.
Right.
So I think a lot of us took a step back, just out of the, just to be sensitive to everything and to everyone who's been going through this their entire lives. And now here we are as, privileged white people trying to figure out what this all means and how we can better, help this cause. So, to answer your question, yeah, during the pandemic, I think we got really creative. I had some fun with, Julie Stewart-Binks and Jackie Redmond, and we kind of created our own little niche show, whatever you want to call it. And then some stuff for NHL Network, and then a little bit for DAZN. I was doing my own boxing stuff. But yeah, once the Black Lives Matter cause like came to the forefront, a lot of us thought it was just kind of out of respect. It was time just to kind of shut that down and really let that cause shine, so to speak.
LG, you have such a big heart, and you can tell just by the way that you talk about these things and how passionate you are. And just to add to that real quick, how special was it to see not just, the people that we know in our own little sports community, but across sports in general, journalists kind of having a voice during this time? Because we try and keep world issues kind of separate from sports during certain times. And this one, I mean, not this one time, but this time is just like, oh yeah, no one's staying silent about this. And it was kind of special to see everybody like, yep, I'll use my platform. I'm talking, you're talking, we're talking. I don't know. Did you get this kind of like, hey, this is kind of cool that we use sports for something bigger right now while sports isn't happening,
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think that the fact that we all have our like own respective platforms, it felt like a responsibility. Like I remember going to bed one night and it like wasn't sitting right with me. And like my sister was a police officer, my brother-in-law is, and yeah, I have a lot of friends of color. And I don't think that it's so hard to talk about this as a privileged white girl, right? But I don't think those two are mutually like exclusive. I think you can still love your family and support them, and also be 100% behind Black Lives Matter. And it didn't sit well. And I remember waking up and I'm like, I feel like I need to speak out. And like, how can I like not have my friends back, who like, friends are the family that you choose. And then you begin to like educate yourself further and have these discussions, these very uncomfortable discussions with your friends. And you realize like, wow, like these discussions are a huge step. Educating yourself is another giant leap, and speaking out and using your platform and showing that solidarity and coming together as just humans, because we have so much more in common than we do different. So yeah, to see that. And I think that's something I always loved about sports, is that it transcends so many different walks of life. I mean, it doesn't matter where you're from, what your religion may be, what your background is, what race you are. Like, you come together for that common cause of your team winning on the court, on the ice, on the field. You're hugging strangers. Well, not now with COVID, but hopefully we'll get back to that. You're high-fiving
Air
people.
hugs.
Like, it's just
Elbow
air
bumps.
hugs. Exactly. And to me, I think that was the beauty of it. So this really took it like, it was a quantum leap just to see that we could all come together, not just as journalists, but as, the athletes. And it was everyone just coming together and using that platform and speaking up, and now becoming hopefully the majority, saying this is not okay, it will not stand, and we will begin to initiate change.
That's
Well said.
awesome. I mean, it's such a learning experience on so many levels, just this entire time. Like you said, education is so important when it comes to the Black Lives Matter movement. And, not just that, like education and learning about this time from a societal standpoint, but, from the COVID stuff as well. And like John alluded to, like the content side of things. And I want to go back, because your job with DAZN, that's a digital platform. And that had to have been a unique opportunity for you, because you helped lift that off the ground here when it came to the US. So I'm curious, like what kind of, you said your work's been a little limited right now, but when everything kind of turned virtual, what was your perspective on all of that, coming from and being with a platform that was already solely digital? And what's your experience been like now throughout that transition, and seeing how these networks, and even working with the NHL network, they've obviously had to do a lot more digital stuff than they were before?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think you're giving me way too much credit for lifting it off the ground in the US.
Well, you're a part of it.
Just take it and run with it.
I know.
Right?
Sorry. Thank you.
We like to pump up everyone that comes on
I love
Sideline.
that, guys. And thank you. I'm
It's a
feeling
redhead
very
thing.
loved.
I'm seeing a
It
redhead
is,
thing.
I know. We're sharing like the gingivitis here is happening.
Wait, I love that.
That
That's
is my
fantastic.
fantasy football name, is gingivitis.
I love that. I've heard a lot of ginger like names, but I have not heard that one. That's
I
hilarious.
mean, obviously it's a very sexy term, so feel free to use it. But
my fantasy football name was Redhead Zone. Get it? Red Zone.
oh,
Redhead
I
Zone.
like
Yeah.
that. I'm into
okay.
that one.
I thought that was
very
pretty good.
Clever. That's super clever. So yeah, to get back to your question, I honestly think that, of course, the zone is really not just ahead of the game, because that's, everyone's pulling the plug, and they're just trying to figure out, going, what is it, cordless? What are we calling it? Where are us millennials doing it?
Cordless,
Cord cutting. There
Cutting
we
the
go.
cord?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why did that take me so? This is what happens when you're not
Cordless.
working on a regular basis. You're like,
You forget
okay, the wheels
words.
are not,
Yeah.
right? We are
Yeah.
not firing on all cylinders at this point in time. So
No.
we need like a spring training or training camp of our own
Yep.
before we go back to broadcasting.
Like a thesaurus, a dictionary, and a lot of coffee, and let's freaking go. Like,
English is difficult at times.
oh god.
So obviously, like, yeah, DAZN's ahead of the game, especially from the global perspective. And, they are there to be kind of the Netflix for sports, especially when you look at other markets around the globe, whether you're in Japan or, Germany or, even Canada, you have like NFL Sunday Ticket. So people are able to consume that way. And then making that transition with COVID, it wasn't like a lot changed because we were doing a lot of remotes, and, especially with DAZN was all of our boxing, we were traveling. And then of course, Change Up, which was our nightly baseball show, that was all from studio from MLB Networks. But it was interesting to kind of put things together and realize like what you guys have done such a great job of. And I think a lot of people in our field is creating like your own at-home studio. Obviously, I haven't done a great job today, and I apologize. But editing, writing, producing, like we've become the one-man bands that like everyone used to be back in the day, right? Like when you were working at your local news station, and you're like, okay, I'm shooting, and now I'm writing my copy, and like I'm putting this package together on my own, and then like you send it all in, and that's what we used to do. So it's almost like going back to your roots. So it's been an interesting transition. But it's also been fun just to kind of like put your nose to the grindstone and just work.
And I love how many connections we all have in the industry as well, because we have our own jobs in broadcast and we're pushing stuff to digital. And then even this podcast starting here, it's like, well, what friends in the industry do I want to start content with? And what can we talk about? Who do I trust? And how can we get it out there where everybody's going to love them individually, but collectively it could be something that could really thrive. So you've done that with, is it #what, or is it just what? And there happens to be a hashtag, but I know you have the triple tap there.
#what. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're ridiculous. It's something I kind of like, I know those two women are insanely talented. Obviously they're hockey girls, and I think we're all just cut from similar cloths. And it was one of these things where I was like, what if we like do a show with like all women, usually talking about sports, but not necessarily, just kind of whatever's trending or whatever we feel like, and just mostly say what comes to mind. So we've definitely had some crazy episodes. It's kind of on a little bit of a hiatus at this point, but yeah, you're right. And I think trust is the key word, and that's what you guys have developed. You've developed that chemistry, that trust, and you know that you can kind of put yourselves out there and be vulnerable. And I think that's when you get your best content, is when you're truly vulnerable.
Yeah, you don't really have to take it too serious. I feel like when you get on a broadcast, you're going to be able to speak to that better than I would. But we've all had jobs where we're working in arena or on a broadcast or during a game or something like that. And like, we got to be honed in. But with #what, it's like, I'm going to go off the cuff a little bit. I'm going to like really, really be me. I'll bring up something I normally wouldn't bring up in a broadcast or have the opportunity to. So I feel like that's what people want to see, is this genuine side and having a good time while you're talking about things that are going to be able to impact each other and the audience as well.
And I think that's exactly like what you guys are doing. And I think the whole purpose, obviously, when you are working a broadcast, you're there to be a storyteller. You're there to be the conduit for the fans that trust you, and you're like their gateway to, their favorite team, their favorite players behind the scenes, all of that. But why not let that person have the personality? And like, I mean, you guys can probably relate to this. I remember covering Avs games, and at our pregame set, people just come up to me that I'd never met before, but they felt like they knew me because they were kind enough to, allow me into their homes night in and night out to be that storyteller. And, when it comes to like the #what, it was the same thing. It was just like, you know what, we're just kind of telling our stories. And if anything, we're providing a bit of an escape, from a lot of serious stuff going on in the world. And sometimes it's just like, let's add a little bit of levity. Let's just have some fun. And if people wanted to get to know us better, like hear our takes on things, which who knows why they would, but we're just having fun. And again, I think it just comes down to like being vulnerable and hoping, you can entertain in that vein.
One of the episodes that you did, though, that had some of the best takes, Abby was talking about this before we started recording. It was like the worst advice you'd ever been given. And was it you, LG, that said someone told you about your personality? That was like, you were just like, wait, what? Like how, like totally bringing that podcast name into the show right there. Like what? #what? I would say all three of you have such huge personalities, and you let them show on screen. You let them show in front of the fans. And I think that's what makes fans adhere to what you're saying more, because of the personalities that you have. But LG, how hard is that sometimes, especially for upcoming broadcasters and people who are looking to break into the business, which a lot of our listeners are? How hard is it sometimes to kind of not listen to that voice out there that's putting you in the box and saying, no, you have to be professional, or don't take anything away from this person, or don't be too funny, don't be too, cute, don't be too whatever. Like, how do you
Yeah.
balance that? And what do you tell someone who's looking to like start, but like not be a robot and stay in the box?
And I know you guys have experienced that. I also think there's like a stylistic evolution that's taking place within our industry and all of broadcasting, the way things are presented and consumed, whether it's the YouTubers or it is like traditional broadcasters. I think the days of us, doing the stand-ups, being more robotic, are behind us for the most part. And I think we're just trying to humanize these things. Like, we're humans. It's okay. Like, we can make mistakes. We can be people. We can have fun. We can laugh. We can have personalities. Now, that said, it's not about us. We know that. We're here to tell stories. I mean, when it's something like this or hashtag what, like, of course, you're just having fun and you're goofing around. But I think it's still possible. And I had such a great time doing this, whether it was with the Avalanche or DAZN or, NHL Network on the fly. I think we were able to be creative and have fun, delivering highlights without just being boring and robotic. It's like, hey, like, let's, the Kachuk brothers are facing off. Like, let's grab some popcorn and like have some fun with it, and or do like a Game of Thrones thing, on camera. And I think when you do that, it makes the experience more enjoyable for the viewer, because if you're having fun, they're going to have fun. So for people that are looking to get into the industry that, may have watched, more of the old school presenters, as they say up in Canada, or across the pond, that's fine. That's great. But also, like, be you, because no one else will be better at being you than you. That is like the most beautiful gift you can bring to this world. And it took me a really long time to let go and not only discover that, but to let go and fully let that come through. And there are still times when I like bring it back in, or I'm like, oh, like I feel like I'm inadequate, or I'm not good enough, or like I should be more like this person, instead of just like when you truly just like set in that space and you're just like, no, this is me and I'm okay with that. And not everyone's going to like that, and that is all right, which I'm a people pleaser, so that is really difficult for me to swallow.
No,
but
okay.
I know, like, everyone has to like me. I don't understand. But you do discover that, like, when you really do, and I know it keeps coming. I've obviously been reading a lot of Brene Brown, but it always comes back to being vulnerable. And when you do, like, let that, like, that guard down, and you like just put yourself out there, more often than not, people are going to relate to you, and they will be more forgiving when it comes to any sort of mistake or flub or whatever, because it's like, oh, I can relate to that person. That's like me. That could be me out there. And they see themselves in you.
Well, and we talked about this kind of before you hopped on, how positive you are and how contagious your personality is. And to Carlin's point, like, the big personality that you have is, people love it. And everything I've always seen is positive comments about your work, your personality, the great relationships you have. When you do get criticism, how do you handle that? Besides, and you kind of alluded to it a little bit there, but I mean, everyone's going to get criticized no matter what, whether we're seeing it or not. And I've never seen it, but I'm sure you dealt with that, especially early on in your career. And for young broadcasters coming up, like, once you do start receiving that criticism, there's got to be a way to get yourself over that so that you can continue to be successful.
Yeah. And I mean, all three of you can probably attest to this, especially Carlin, because you and I kind of come from similar backgrounds when it comes to like in-game entertainment, although like we worked our tails off to get to where we are.
In-arena host over here too.
Woo woo, guys,
Yeah.
I love this.
Yeah.
Game
We
host
all
team.
Oh yeah.
Let's go.
Oh yeah.
We all understand this.
Oh, yeah.
And
Speak on.
it is overcoming, various stereotypes that are associated with maybe your background or your appearance, or, like I was an NFL cheerleader, and, people, I felt like I was always like, I suffered from this like feeling of inadequacy, because like I thought somehow like people didn't think I earned my position.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like they didn't know all the, the minor league hockey games I covered, for seasons on end on the radio for like not even gas money, or the internships, or, working for free for covering this and that. Like, you guys all are doing the same thing. You're grinding, and there is no set blueprint to get to where we are, where you guys hope to be, where, you know, I hope to be. In the criticism, oftentimes you receive constructive criticism. So I believe that criticism can be extremely beneficial if someone comes to you and says, hey, like, you know, when you delivered that, like maybe do this, or like I had, oh my gosh, one of my favorite directors of all time, works in baseball and hockey. I'm going to name drop. Mike Fox is tremendous. And he was a director on, and still is on the Colorado Avalanche broadcast. And now he's over with the Chicago Cubs, formerly Dodgers. And then prior to that, the Rockies. He was like, hey, when you do your ringside hits coming out of break, just get into it. Like, we don't need a full on reset because we need to get going before puck drops. Just like if you're covering football, like you don't do a report over the snap. Like there are all these things. When they line up over the ball, that's when you need to wrap it up. And I just kind of forgot about that because I almost got complacent. I was just like, you know, I'm home. And that was it. All I needed was like a keyword, or like our like key or code phrase was like meat and potatoes. And so that was constructive. But then, yeah, when it comes to things like, hey, we need you to dial back your personality, that was something that, you know, I really took to heart. And then I became this robot and it kind of got into my head. And then finally I was just like, no, I have to be me because that's why I'm here. Like, you were hired because you were you, right? Like, anyone can go in and be like this robotic broadcaster, but like people relate to the personality. And then when it comes to, you know, social media and all that, like people can be very cruel, as I'm sure you guys well know. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't take it to heart sometimes. Like it sucks. There's something about the human condition where the negative somehow stands out more than the positive. So you could receive 30 positive comments on something and maybe 2 negative, and you're gonna like dwell on those 2 negative things. So I think it's really like, and I know this is gonna sound real hippy dippy, but this has like been my jam for the past few years, is like, I think the practice of meditation has really helped because you let things just flow through you. Like, you acknowledge it and you're like, that bothers me. And then you're like kind of observing, well, why does it bother you? Is it pulling out like an insecurity that you may have, or like reflecting like that back on, or projecting that back onto you? So, and then you just kind of let it pass through. So I've really tried to like not deny that it bothers me, because it does. And like, sometimes I'm like, man, that could cut me deep. Like, I know you're hiding behind like a phone, but like, I have feelings. I'm a person. But also we're putting ourselves out there to be judged. So I think it is like, the trolls are going to troll, and we're putting ourselves out there to be judged. I think it's just a matter of like how you handle it, but it's okay to be hurt by it. Like, people say you don't care what others think, but that's just part of the human condition to care what others think.
It hurts.
Yeah, I think it hurts so bad. It's the worst.
Does.
I know,
It hurts.
like, we all starting out as in-arena hosts, like we're now like just getting into the business, and probably throughout our lives, we have a lot of really good friends, and we were outgoing, and we were always in front of people, and we always had people like pump our tires. And then now when we're in a bigger platform, you're going to see some more of those comments. And I think it's so important to face it individually, because I think that was something for me when I was just starting in San Jose. I was like, I thought everybody liked me. Like, what is this? Like
I
you
want
see
to
someone-
until you get booed by an entire arena of people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's just
What?
like,
Wait, who did that happen to? Who was booed by an entire arena?
I can't point. I'm like trying to point.
yeah, the
at-
redhead.
Oh no, Abby, what
No,
happened?
it's funny because my Sarah Sivian, shout out, she's my roommate. I don't know if you know her
she's
or
great.
follow
have to
her.
shout her out
I'm
every
a huge
episode.
fan
Yeah.
of hers.
Yeah. So we're roommates, and she actually did like a Q&A with me on my job as an in-arena host. And there's this situation that happened on opening day where I was trying to do like there was this game, and basically there was a bunch of technical issues, and all the fans started booing because the entire like game went wrong. And so when Sarah wrote this article, I explained like the whole thing, and I was laughing as we're on the topic of like reading comments. I was reading like all the comments that people were commenting like on her article, and there was like 2 or 3 people that were like, "Don't worry, Abby, like we were booing the game, the idea. We were actually booing you." I'm like, "Thanks, guys. At least 2 of the 18,000 didn't actually boo me."
You poor thing.
Yeah, no. Hey, it comes with the territory, though. You got to expect it. But at the same time,
100%.
they say you have to have thick skin, and I feel like no matter how thick your skin is, to your point, like that stuff hurts. Even if they're like, "Oh, he only has 1 follower," guys. Doesn't matter. That was rude to say.
It was. And nowadays it's so easy to hide behind, the not, like nondescript Twitter handle, and you have the egg as your avatar, and it's like you're just throwing all the shade. And I think I just started blocking people. Like I'm just like, I don't have any room for negativity in my life. Like if it's not constructive, then I mean, you can disagree with me. I'm totally fine with that. That's, the beauty of this whole situation in our country and a lot of the free world. But if you're just gonna like throw shade just because it makes you feel better or whatever, it's just like I don't have room for that.
I think sometimes too, like people are going to throw some shade because they might just not connect with you or be like, how are you associated with this team or this area or something like that. But I mean, you grew up in Colorado, you grew up in Denver. So I think people probably saw that and they connected a little bit better than some people who might not be from LA or New York or something like that. And they jump in. It's like, what do you actually know about us? So do you feel like that helped out? Like a lot,
oh my
just
God.
being able to connect with that fan base and people online and in person?
It did. It was, I mean, honestly, who am I kidding? That was a dream job, except for to finally, like come to New York and experience this lifestyle. But yeah, I mean, I was covering my hometown teams. It was a dream come true. And, it was like, I grew up there. I went to like the Super Bowl parades, the Stanley Cup parades. I played softball. I was a dancer. I ended up being a Broncos cheerleader, like worked for all the teams, I think, except for maybe the Nuggets. I think I did stuff for the Nuggets too. So yeah, literally like worked for everyone. And then I got to like cover my hometown teams, and it was literally a dream come true. And I think people did feel that connection because they're like, oh, this is like our daughter or sister or niece or whatever. Like she's been here this whole time. I mean, to this day, you guys will probably get a lot of that. I'm sure. Like I was the in-game host for the Colorado Rockies back in like 2010 for 2 seasons. And to this day, there's still people like, you're the Rockies girl. Like used to give away, this is how old I am, iPods. I was like,
what are those?
What are those?
It's like this little like
That's
box
awesome.
thing that is like not as cool as your phone, and it plays music. Or it used to. But yeah, like it was so funny. So that was one of those things where like, the repetition, and they're just like, hey, we know you. You're one of us.
So when you went from, growing up in Denver, covering all those teams, and then you make that jump, to the national level, and you go to one of the, New York City, what was that experience like for you from not just a preparation and adjustment standpoint, like just from the physical move itself, but just going from covering all the teams that you knew to now covering nationally?
Yeah, that's a great question, Abby. I think so. Prior to being with DAZN, and you guys know this, like all of our roads and our resumes are jam packed with like so many random things that you even forget you've done after a certain amount of time has gone by. So prior to working for Altitude, I was actually with CBS Sports Network covering college football, a little bit of NFL, college basketball. So at least like I had, I was on in that realm, so to speak. And then I worked on a random show on Smithsonian Channel for a season, like so many different, called Sports Detectives. And I didn't get to slide over a hood. I was very disappointed. I know. I like envisioned like a Starsky and Hutch thing. It didn't happen. But yeah, you know what? There's something that I heard from a major league ball player, and it always stuck with me. It's like, just because you're at a different level, just because you got called up from AAA to the show, doesn't mean the game's changed. The game is still the same. So you still prepare the same way. Actually, you have a lot more resources. So I will say it almost gets easier because we have like a research department at MLB and NHL Network, and even DAZN for some of our boxing shows. I'm like, wait a second. I was used to putting in all that work. Like when I hosted that fantasy football show, I would just sit there for like, sometimes up to 3-4 hours just preparing for that show. Or like, when I was hosting pregame in studio for the Avs or on the road or whatever. But yeah, like a lot of that was through osmosis, because after a while, like you knew your team like the back of your hand. So as long as you showed up to practice and, morning skate, you knew what was going on. Like you read the occasional article, but you're like, yeah, I know that. Like I know these stories because I'm, you're just like embedded with this group of people and this team. So yeah, it does, like you definitely have that outsider's perspective. And there are times when I'm like, oh man, I missed that, like I'm hosting on the fly and I'm sitting there having to read game notes, and we have this tremendous research department that, provides everything, but you still don't have that like visceral feel and that connection to the team. So you're just kind of like going, by what you see on the screen or what you're reading in the packet or, online doing your research. I know this is like a very like layered answer to your question, but I think there are just so many different layers to it. And I was like chomping at the bit, like Carla, when I saw you at the Stadium Series game in Colorado Springs, I was just like, I get to go cover something in person. This is so cool. I miss my people, my team. And so yeah, it's definitely different, but I would say, again, the game doesn't change. You still want to be as prepared as you were for your other job. Like you're there. And I think it's important for people to realize, even when you take that next step, if you're interning and you go to be an in-game host or, a team reporter or whatever, like you still bring that same game. You don't have to change who you are. And I think that took me a while to like realize that as well. But even if it's a bigger show, like they still just want you to be you and to prepare the same way.
What would you tell someone who's aiming for a specific sport? Because I feel like when I started out, it was just all hockey, everything. And I pigeonholed myself in a great way because I love hockey to death. Then I branched out a little bit and did some baseball. But I know, and I'll be honest, I know nothing about football. If someone hired me tomorrow to go do NFL, yeah, I'd say yes. We all would. That would be incredible. And heck yeah. But at the end of the day, I'd have to study like a mad woman. We all know that comes with the job anyway, but I would have to do double time to get where a normal baseline would be for anyone else. So if there are people that are looking to break into this world, are you telling them, hey, do all things, dabble in all sports? Or do you think it's beneficial to kind of get in on your best foot forward and that maybe one route that you're really, really knowledgeable in?
That's also a great question. First of all, I would have so much faith in you being on the sidelines for a football game because I know you would put in, you put the work in. You would do it.
I would work, but it would just be really hard. It would be really hard.
Carla, what's a football shaped like? No,
like an acorn, right? those
like an acorn.
She's ready. Put her in, coach.
I have a
Please
friend
don't send this to the NFL.
I have a friend who knows nothing about sports, and she's like, sports. And so we'll be like, what's a shortstop? And she's like, a shortstop is in the game of sports. It's like so funny. Like she doesn't care. She doesn't want to know, and she doesn't know. And it's beautiful to hang out with her because it's like gives you some perspective as to like how some people live their lives. That is a great question. For me, I took every opportunity available. I think the first thing I ever covered was indoor lacrosse.
Whoa.
And it was amazing. And then I think the first thing I ever covered on CBS Sports Network was ultimate frisbee. So, and then I think I had a 6-month stint on MTV where I was covering lingerie football. And then I covered college football, NFL, college basketball, now boxing, here we are, baseball, like hockey. Like, I think, and so now I feel like I'm like the Jane of all trades, the master of none. But, at the same time, it's been so great to know that like I feel comfortable and confident doing anything. It's like, okay, I don't know anything about indoor lacrosse, but I'm going to figure it out. Or like ultimate frisbee. I was like, what is happening? Where are we? But, I think you can do it. And I think if you do show that versatility, it provides value. And then at the same time, if you look at the other side of the coin, if you are really honed in and like an expert in a sport, and usually it helps if it's like a niche sport. And, like for me, like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to become like an expert in boxing because there are not very many women that are covering that sport. And obviously that's like DAZN's, at least the US branch, that's their bread and butter. So I was like, okay, I'll figure it out. I'm going to like just inundate myself in that sport. So for me, like that helps. And then obviously hockey, like I hate to say it, like, of course we're all in that sphere, but it's also like a sport where there aren't too many people that really know their stuff. So I would say, yeah, if it's something like that, you make yourself value added, but it's also like having a feel for what the industry looks like. everyone and their brother wants to be on the sidelines for an NFL or a college football game. Listen, I did it. It was tremendous. I absolutely loved it. Again, would I go back if someone asked me to? Yeah, but I'm kind of enjoying like carving out like a little niche for myself and hopefully being like one of the top people in those sports versus being like 20th on the depth chart when it comes to basketball or football. So you can kind of look at it anyway, but if you're really passionate about your, that respective sport, then I think, yeah, of course, pursue it. If not, then kind of like make yourself more versatile, because then they can plug you into wherever they need someone.
Speaking about boxing specifically, I feel like Abby and I have talked about on this show before, like I know I grew up in the Bay Area for a little bit of my life. I watched the Sharks, been a Sharks fan my whole life. But hockey, I never really played. I didn't follow it that much. So we still had a little bit of a learning curve. So when it came to boxing, did you have a background in that at all? And once you jumped into it, like, what did you learn about the sport? Because I'm sure you're kind of thinking like, how are so many people so into this? And I think it's mostly because we never were really around people that were into boxing, but you realize how big of an audience it is and how big of a moneymaker it is as well.
Yeah, I was originally hired, by DAZN and MLB NHL Network to host Change Up, which was on DAZN. It's a nightly like red zone for baseball show. So I was like, okay, baseball. Like I was literally on the road with the Avs one week and then like flew home. My parents packed up my apartment, packed up my, desk at my office on that Friday, had a going away party that night, and flew to New York Saturday. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear the sirens. Stayed at a extended stay in Secaucus, New Jersey. But we got to work that next day. So I was like, hockey, baseball, and then we had it was Canelo Alvarez versus Daniel Jacobs fight in Vegas that May. So I moved out here like in, for the beginning of the season, so mid-March-ish, late March. And then they're like, okay, well, we'll put you just like on red carpet duty because this is a big broadcast. There will be a lot of eyes. We want to like have our Change Up people like somewhat visible and kind of like cross promote the two properties. And, I arrived in Vegas and it's like you couldn't walk 3 feet without seeing a poster for this fight. And of course, like I followed a little bit growing up, like, the Mike Tysons and the Floyd Mayweathers and, a couple of things. And I covered, we did a story when I was with that Smithsonian Channel show on Muhammad Ali. But yeah, no, I wasn't big into boxing at all. And I sat ringside after I was done with my red carpet duties, and I just fell in love with it. And then you start talking to the people. And I think that's what has drawn me to this industry, to this job, is being a storyteller. And some of the best stories are in boxing, honestly. And I mean, a lot of sports, but it is, it's very much an individual sport. It's a lot of people having to overcome so many odds in order to get to, their peak. And there are upsets, like we saw Anthony Joshua get defeated by Andy Ruiz Jr. to become the first Mexican heavyweight in the history of boxing. So like you're witnessing history and to see the athleticism and how hard they can hit, it's terrifying. But it just, all of it. So, and then I fell in love with it. And I remember going up to Chris Mannix, who's one of our analysts, and he also writes for SI, and he's great. And I was like, I love this. I want to do more. And he's like, I'll help you. And the rest was kind of history. I just like continued asking questions, asking for opportunities, asking just to be there. And then I was even hired by the promoter that's partners with DAZN, Matchroom Boxing, to do like their sit down interview show with their fighters. And then just through talking to the fighters, it's a culture, right? And then you just kind of like, you just do through osmosis, just like hockey, just like anything.
It's not
how are your boxing skills though, before we get into anything else?
I mean, I went to like a couple of classes. Yeah, I would figure it out. But I'll never forget, like I interviewed Amanda Serrano, who is like, she's incredible. And she lives in Brooklyn, and just like standing next to her, and I think she weighs less than I do, but I was just like, I don't want to be hit by you after no, I'm good. Like you just realize how tough and how skilled and talented these athletes truly are. And so yeah, I can hang in a class, like a title boxing class, but beyond that, no, like I don't want to step into the ring and spar with anyone that is, beyond my level.
So did you audition for that job with DAZN? I'm just curious. How
Yes,
many? Go ahead.
2 auditions. So I flew out here not
Okay.
once, but twice in the middle of an Avalanche season. So we
Oh my
had like
gosh.
this big break for All-Star break, and then the bye week backed up to it. And I was going to go to Iceland to see the Northern Lights. I'm like, this is great. I'm gonna, like, check something off the bucket list. And this opportunity came up, and I was like, or I'm going to New Jersey, like totally the same thing.
Way prettier in New Jersey,
yeah,
right?
exactly. But so it was a really crazy audition process.
So I'm assuming that's not the only audition you've done.
No, God, so many. I mean, even I'm sure in arena, like I had auditioned to be the in arena host for the Rockies, for the Avalanche,
Yep. So I'm just
maybe the Broncos. I can't
yeah,
remember.
I'm curious because we talked a little bit about this with Molly McGrath when we had her on, and she was like, I've only done one audition and that's it my entire career. And I was like, lucky you.
Wow.
Because I've already gone through a few. John's done some. Carlin, you probably did one when you were going to be the in-game host.
No.
Oh, no, you were one of the ice girls. So you kind of
Yeah.
worked your way into that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I bullied my way in. It's like,
Your career was the audition.
yes.
But
Carry on.
auditions are such a common thing in this industry, and something that you think goes away after the in-game host and arena level, but many networks, want you to come in and do these extensive auditions. Like you said, you didn't do just one, you did 2 for DAZN. What would be your biggest piece of advice when it comes to auditions and how to prepare for those? Because I know young reporters may not be expecting that. They're going to get into that.
You know what? I think that the not expecting that is another key component here, because I remember, even like, I'm aging myself here, but a while ago when I thought I wanted to move out to LA and like make it happen. And I went out there, and like I had scheduled a meeting with like some sort of digital platform. I think it was like the Daily or something. I thought I was just going in for a meeting. Oh no, it was an audition. I was so unprepared. And I was
That's
just
so
like,
LA,
what?
LG. That's so LA.
I was just like, wait, what are we doing here? Like, and then another time, actually, ironically enough, full circle, I came up thinking I had a meeting with NHL Network. It was before, it was like still up in Canada, but it was more digital. It was just for like some postseason stuff. And I walked in thinking it was a meeting, and it was an audition reading highlights. Keep in mind, I hadn't covered hockey in a while, so I was like, oh, it was horrible. I've had so many bad experiences with auditions. But then again, like, I also auditioned at the NBC affiliate in New Orleans to be like one of their, sports, it's like a weekend sports reporter slash anchor. And that I was prepared for, and it was fine. It went well. But and then of course there was this altitude. I didn't really have to, because I'd worked with them, previously. But like Lauren Jabara, who took over for me with the Avalanche, she had an audition process as well, and it kind of lasted throughout the summer. She covered the Colorado Rapids, which is the MLS team. So I guess the best advice is be prepared. MLB Network, NHL, DAZN, they did such a tremendous job of like adequately preparing their candidates for this particular audition, and for all of them. And that like they'll contact you a couple weeks ahead of time, not to make you nervous, and then just like, okay, we're going to simulate, again, English, off season, quarantine season. So yeah, we're going to simulate like this particular day towards the end of the season. So we're going to send you a research packet, and just be prepared. So for like this change up show, it's so off the cuff. Like there's nothing aside from just like reading the packet and getting familiar with the storylines of the games. That's all you can really prepare for. So I went in, and they're like, okay, we're going to do these full screens of like the main games, like pitching matchups. And then we'll do some social media. We showed you that. But then they threw like a curveball, and they showed me my own social media, and like just to see how you react, if you have fun with it. And then the rest was like, okay, so we're in this game. Now we're going to go to this game. Like, make sure you have a nugget from the packet, and you're just going from game to game to see how you can handle that, and then have conversation about like those respective games with your partner. So that was one of those things where I think the key was not, I was up until like 2 a.m, of course, like trying to study this packet. I had all the highlighters out. I came in, I was like, I don't know, I think I'm ready for this. And, but then once I got in studio, of course I was nervous, but I had a great audition partner in Steven Nelson, who's a host at MLB and NHL networks. And I also was like, I have a great job at altitude covering my hometown team. So like, whatever, like worst comes to worst, I came in, I had a great experience. I got a tour of these, this amazing campus, and I can go home like knowing that like I like did my best. And the CP for MLB Network, Mark Weiner, was just like, just be you. That's all we want. We don't want you leaving feeling like you left anything like on the table. Like, just go out there, have a good time, and just relax and be you. So I think they also help set the tone. But I think that's the key, is to be you, because if you go in and, again, like this, like full circle back to what we were discussing earlier, if you try to be something you're not, and then say like you get the job, then they're going to expect you to be that person for the rest of your career with them. So also not great. So I just went around, I was like, I don't know. And I was like, oh, you guys liked that? Okay, cool. I mean, and I think I made like a goofy joke, and I was just like, oh, is that too far? But like, whatever. Like, I was just like, I don't care. I'm just going to be me.
And the thing that
So,
I've
yeah.
learned too in the few auditions that I've had in the short time in my career is that they want you to succeed anyways. You know, like
Yes.
most of the time you've already had to do like a phone interview and person interview. Like there's a process before, like they want to see you succeed because they already like you for a reason. They have you coming in there for a reason. And so that's been, for me personally, a good mindset to have as I go into these in the future, is they want you to succeed. And so just be yourself. Like you said, like that's who you're going to have to be for that job anyways. Like you don't want to have to do that for however many years you're in that position. Like that would suck.
You being there. I was going to say, you being there is somebody's good idea. So that person's like, please be good. Please be good.
I
Please
like
be good.
that spin.
You know?
And they invested company resources in like either having you out there, whether it was like just spending the time on you, flying you out, putting you up in a hotel, or if it's, you know, a local team. Like I remember when I auditioned for the Rockies, I was just like, I got this. Like, I think also just being confident.
Yeah.
Being confident goes a long way. But you're right. They're not out to get you, because I think there were times when I'm like, oh, well, they don't like you. It's like, no, like they brought you in for a reason. They want you to succeed. They have invested resources in you being here. And even if it doesn't turn out, like if you made a good impression, you never know where that could lead. It could lead to a job with them in the future, or someone else may have an opening and they'll reach out to the people who you auditioned for, and they'll be like, actually, like we really liked Abby and she was great in her audition. Like you should give her a call. So you just never know.
Abby, you lived that. I feel like that's like, something you know all about.
I went through a audition process one summer, actually last summer, for a huge opportunity, and I didn't get it because I didn't have enough experience, right? And then I get phone calls like a month, enough TV experience specifically. So I'd done all the in-game hosting stuff, but I didn't have the broadcast TV experience. And then a month after that, I get called for an opportunity to be on a broadcast, right? As a sideline reporter, regional sports network broadcast.
Girl.
I was doing that. And then like a month after that, I fill in for our ringside reporter who was really sick. And so then I now get more real TV broadcast experience. And I went back to that same company and I said, hey, I know you guys told me I didn't have enough TV broadcast experience, but here's what I did 6 months after you told me that. And like, here, I just wanted to let you know that now I've done this. And so, and Carlin, you've had experience too with auditioning for an actual position. And then it didn't work out with the person they hired. And then you get the job later on because you made an impression in your audition. So it all comes full circle, and you're gonna, the industry's so small. We all know this already. And everyone moves around in different places. And as long as you continue to make your mark on those people and keep those relationships, even after getting the no's, people are going to come back later on and tell you yes. So I think that advice is great from you, LG, for sure. So
yeah, you're a salesperson. It's staying top of mind and, emailing and texting, and you're right, just forming relationships as well. And being a good human, that goes a long way. Like I'll never forget being on a call with our executive producer with CBS Sports, and it was our college football kind of like, just like, it wasn't necessarily a seminar, but it was a call with all the reporters. And, Tracy Wolfson, who took the time to like just get on the phone with me at one point, who is a consummate pro. She started off as a runner, by the way. And obviously, he had high praise, obviously, for her. Like she covers Super Bowl. She's on the A package, NFL. She used to be on the SEC package. Like she is so insanely talented, but she's also one of the kindest people you'll ever meet, just like the three of you. And she literally like took the time to talk to me. But what the executive producer pointed out was like, hey, like there are a lot of talented people out there, but obviously Tracy is, but what made her really stand out is that she's a kind human. She has integrity, she's easy to work with, and she's not above, doing anything. And that should go without saying, but
You'd be surprised.
sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what people appreciate about just so many of us. And that's what we want to hear more than just like at the end of our careers, at the end of our lives, we want to be like every single one of us, like that was a good dude. They were awesome. Like I appreciated them because they treated me like as a human and with respect and dignity. And I feel like that can just go so far in order to get these jobs, get these auditions, and actually, because you're representing more than just this show. It's a network and so many different people, and they want to know that you're going to be fantastic in studio, on the field or court, and in person. You're not going to pull some crap out there. But I think going back on that, we talk about our background, and obviously we want a lot of experience in order to get these bigger jobs, and we want to go to these bigger schools and take like the specific classes from these big professors or people that can teach us a lot. But sometimes we don't go to big schools like me, Azusa Pacific. I guarantee you've never heard of that school.
What's the mascot?
I'm just gonna ask that.
Cougars, go Cougs.
Oh, nice. It's not like the Ice Bats or something.
No, that was their second choice. If Cougars.
Okay, or like the platypus, platypi.
The platypi.
The platypi.
That was top 5.
Okay.
But if you don't go to a big school or you don't like study the specific major like communications or journalism, and you were a political science major, correct?
Yeah, you did your homework. I wanted to be a lawyer.
So I think that's what's like interesting
out.
too. Like people like might not necessarily have been studying for this or working their whole like young adult life in order to get to where they're at. So like what advice would you give for people that are like, all right, I want to get into broadcasting, journalism, sports, but I didn't study that?
School of life. I think, all 4 of us can attest to that. And it's just like surrounding yourself with it. I mean, I continued as a poli-sci major. I graduated with a degree in political science, even though my sophomore year, I began interning at a regional sports magazine where I didn't receive any credit, where I wasn't compensated financially, just because I love sports and I just wanted to be part of it. I didn't care how. I just wanted to be in it. It was great. And then, fast forward to a year later, I was at another event through, connections of being associated with the team in the magazine. And I leveraged that to getting an internship with the regional sports network after I called the EP 5 times because it didn't have an internship program. He's like, this girl's so annoying. Just come in and shut up, would you? And I just like wandered the hallways, and I was like, and finally one of like the head editors kind of like took me under his wing, and he was great. And he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know, teach me how to do some of this. So I was like running, camera and studio and ticker and editing like old school, like, the game melts for arena football and the Rockies. And I never really went out on site to any of the games, but I just knew like I loved the culture, I loved the people, and I loved being around sports. And it continued from there. And then like with the sports magazine, they had like this monthly show on Altitude, which was our sports network, and I had expressed interest in being on camera, and they had me host like this one feature on that show, which I was horrible. I was like around the town, and I was like at a rodeo, like look at like, hey guys, look at this rodeo. What am I doing? So bad. But
Yeah.
it was a start. And I just took every opportunity available, and I just kept like, jamming my foot indoors, and I tried, make that opening, that gap larger and larger until, eventually it became a career. But it wasn't easy. I had so many full-time jobs along the way, in addition to being an in-arena host, in addition to hustling my way, through various like sideline roles and whatever I could take. And I was using vacation time to do all of those things. And, luckily I had great employers, but like it was a hustle, it was a grind, and I don't regret any of it. So I think it really is like, it's the want, it's the desire. And it's also like, sometimes I say the hustle, but also like kind of like taking that path of least resistance. Like if something is showing away, like go down that path as long as you're comfortable with it. Like who would have thought I'd be covering lingerie football on MTV for 6 months? But it it was my transition into broadcasting full time, and then it ended up with CBS Sports Network. So I think like so many people will reach out, and I'm sure you guys get the same thing. And I was talking to Jackie Redmond and JSB about it. It was just like everyone wants this advice or this blueprint or this template. There is no set path to getting to where you want to be, and you may not even know where you want to be. And I think sometimes that's such a great question that people will ask, whether it's in an interview or just someone's like, well, what's your ultimate goal? Like, do you want to be whatever, Aaron Andrews, or do you want to be this? I'm like, I want to see where it goes. Because if someone asked me 2 years ago, I wouldn't say I want to be working for a streaming platform covering boxing, baseball, and hockey, like working for 3 different networks. So I think you also have to be open to the opportunities that are like, that just like present themselves. And sometimes that question can really like paint you into a corner, because I think you have to be very open-minded, especially the way that the sports, like the landscape is changing. And I would say anyone who's an aspiring broadcaster, brush up on your fantasy and brush up on your betting knowledge, because that is the future.
What's your go ahead, Carlin?
I was gonna say, LG, the future of sports right now, we have a little bit of a clearer picture about hockey. Do you know what your role is going to be? Oh, right, exactly.
I know. I'm so excited.
Are you?
No
Are you?
idea.
Oh, you don't know at all. Oh gosh, because
Oh god.
we've heard so many different things about where it's going to be, what's going to happen. Things are coming into picture now, and things are becoming more clear. But I just wonder about a job like yours. Does anyone get to be on site and report? Is it all going to be studio based? Are people loud in the locker rooms? Like, have they said anything to anybody about what you may have for access?
It's a great question. I haven't heard anything. I think so much is up in the air. I don't even think the league knows what they're going to do when it comes to media access. Again, like when it comes to like that depth chart at NHL Network, like I am the rookie, really. So I'm just like, I'm here to do whatever. Like, it is funny because you always like, it's that we've all played team sports. So you know what it's like to just be like, yep, I'm the rookie. I'm here. Whatever you need. You want me to go on site? I'll be there. You want me to just be back up at studio host NHL tonight? I'll be there. You want me to just like hang out and whatever, bring people coffee? Like, I will be there. Like, the fact that sports is back in action, I'm so excited. I don't think even the NHL knows what they're going to do. And then when it comes down to, what the network, what their plans are, I think it's just, I think so many factors are at play, and there's so many variables right now that are up in the air that I don't think anyone knows. I mean, yeah, it would be a dream to like be part of history and be on site covering this. Yeah, I wish I had a better answer for you, but if anything, okay. I mean, I just like the rest of us, I think we're all just pumped that like hockey is returning. Thank God.
Amen to that.
Thank God.
Thank God.
I was going to ask you, when you were talking about the lingerie football and the ultimate frisbee and all the other things that you've done, is there a favorite like event or something that you've covered that you'll always remember? I guess it doesn't even have to be your favorite, but like your most memorable like event or position that you've held.
Wow. Oh, and I left out, I actually, so random, speaking of in-game hosting, we did a couple of really cool events that it basically served that function. Was at the Kentucky Derby back in 2014, and they just installed a huge, like a big screen, and somehow like I was living in Cincinnati at the time and whatever. So yeah, like I was asked to be a part of that show, and it was just like the in-house show, but it was such an amazing experience. Everyone was just in such a great mood. The energy was fantastic. It's guaranteed, like 2 minutes of action that you're like going to be there. You're going to see all the races. And I got to go behind the scenes and like, check out like the garland of roses, and then like, the $1,000 mint julep. And like, I was just kind of around just like, hey fans, like we're doing this. And that was honestly such a incredible experience to be there for that. We did this Field of Dreams game through Pepsi, and it was like, you could enter to win. And then if you did, you and like 80 of your friends got to play against like these Hall of Famers. So we had like Reggie Jackson and Wade Boggs and, all these incredible like Hall of Famers, Johnny Bench, just like wandering around on the field, doing their thing. Dennis Eckersley, like it was just so cool. So like those are memorable, and it wasn't something that ever like made air, but it was just being part of that event and being around greatness, really. And then, I mean, most recently, we had a fight in Arizona, and it was Daniel Jacobs and Cesar Chavez Jr. And I think his nose was broken, but like all the fans there thought that he quit, and it started raining beers, and it was almost like a riot. I was like, my first riot. This is cool.
Oh my God.
So that was also very unique. But working Radio Row for, Super Bowl week here in New York and New Orleans with CBS Sports Network, and interviewing, like Kevin Costner and Jennifer Gardner and like, Cal Ripken and just Mark Messier. Like, it was just so many cool experiences that, this industry has afforded me. Like, I feel beyond blessed. Like, if it was all done tomorrow, which I hope it's not, like I would still be able to look back and be like, that was freaking awesome. So it is really difficult, but to put your finger on just one particular event or experience. I mean, the Avs winning game 82 and going out on the ice was so cool, and they making the playoffs and then covering the postseason in Nashville. Like, there's just so many things that like pop up. You're like,
it's a loaded question.
It's such a loaded question. Traveling all over for sports detectives, like, discovering, where Muhammad Ali's like lost gold medal maybe, or Secretariat's saddlecloth, or Jim Craig, like this flag that was draped over his shoulders for the Miracle on Ice game, and going up to Lake Placid and like stepping on the ice where, like arguably one of the most iconic like moments in sports, if not like our country, took place. So there's just so many things that like, this job, guys, it's awesome. And I've been so blessed. I'm not excited at all.
You have all the great moments, right? The exciting moments. Mm-hmm. Then there's got to be the not so great moments and maybe some embarrassing moments. Okay. So we're going to play a game, and it's a very common game. It's called Two Truths and a Lie. Everyone knows what that is. So LG, we'll let you go last since we already know that we're going to play this game. So I think all three of us kind of have our two truths and a lie, but it's like broadcast edition. And so then when we get to you, hopefully you'll be able to think of like 3 embarrassing broadcast moments. 2 are going to be true and 1's going to be a lie. All right, you guys ready?
This is good.
I didn't write mine down, but I'm going to think of them as I start thinking of them.
John, do you have yours?
I'm so ready to rock.
Oh, he's ready. John, you go first.
I'm so ready. Let's do this.
Twice.
John, you go first.
Okay, 2 truths and a lie. Here we go. I slipped on the ice, fell on my face during the first intermission of a game. I dropped my microphone from the second level of the arena.
Oh!
I got set up on a blind date by one of the players after the game.
Okay, I know the second one's true because you already mentioned it in a podcast. Remember, Carlin?
And I feel like
we narrowed it down.
And I feel like a player would set him up on a blind date too.
I do too.
I think the first one
you dropped. Yeah, you didn't drop your mic.
Fell.
No, the mic is right, Carlin.
I mean, you didn't fall. You didn't fall.
Fell on the ice. Yeah, that's too obvious.
No, you didn't fall. That was a lie. You
fell? Never fell on the ice.
You never. Okay.
Yes. Nice.
Never fallen on the ice.
Nice.
That's what grippies are for.
I never wore grippies. I was just sure-footed.
You're just a baller. All right. Carlin, do you have yours yet, or do you want me to go?
I think I can go. Okay. I have fallen on the ice in front of people 7 times. And I have the scars. I talked to Adrian Kempe about an empty net goal that didn't happen in a post-game show. And then oh gosh. Wait, this is so hard. Why am I bad at this? You haven't even...
Because you're not a good liar. I think this is a good thing.
I already know the first one's true. We already know she's fallen on the ice.
And then those are both truths. I don't know a lie. I can't lie. I can't lie.
She's too pure of heart, guys.
I literally can't make up a lie. I'm like, I can't. That was the hardest part.
That makes me sound bad. I'm like, I can't wait to
Poor
lie to these
Carlin.
girls right now.
It's like, yeah,
So
I got this.
embarrassed.
Straight face, too.
All right, Carlin
tell 2
loses.
lies.
Carlin loses. All right.
Womp, womp, womp.
Abby, tell 2 lies
Okay.
for me.
I announced the wrong name during an award presentation for the person getting the award.
Nice.
Okay. I walked off camera while being live in the middle of an interview.
I feel like that's true.
I did an entire opening hit on the wrong player.
Oh.
Ooh, the first one's a lie. The award show.
Is
I
that
think
our final?
Man.
I think number 2.
Is that our final decision?
It's number 2. I like number 2 is a good one.
Or wait, no, sorry. No, I keep getting them confused. Yes. No, number 1.
Okay.
Because I think number 2 is true. Yeah.
I think number 1 happened. I don't know. Hopefully that's not a slap in the face. I'm going with number 3. Is the
Okay.
lie.
Number 3 is the lie. I have never done an opening
Ooh.
hit on the wrong player. So number 1 is true. It's actually a really funny story. So I did in-game hosting. It was like a side job. A women's soccer tournament was in town, and the NC Courage was playing in it, which is an awesome women's soccer team here in town. They get like a huge amount of support. And I honestly had never really gone to any of the games, right? And so I'm hosting this tournament, and they're doing the awards at the end of this game. And I'm running out, and like I had like a stage manager, and he was going to tell me who the awards were, like who they were in person or who the names were that were getting the awards. And so he tells me the name of the person that I'm giving the award to. And I guess I heard it wrong, or there was a lot going on and I forgot what he told me. And whatever happened, I called the girl Heather McDonald instead of, her name was Jessica McDonald. And so I'm like, here's the award for Heather McDonald. And she looks at me and she goes, my name's Jessica. And I was like, oh my God, this is so awkward in front of all these people. And guys, and then here's the funniest part. The NC Courage come to a Canes game, right? And I have a intermission interview on, this one I'm filling in for Mike Maniscalco on the TV broadcast. And guess who the player was that I'm interviewing?
Heather McDonald.
Jessica McDonald. And she like comes up to the desk, and I was like, I just wanted to apologize for that issue that we had, a few months ago. Like, she was like, I knew that was you. And she was super cool about it. But it was so funny because I'm like, oh my God, okay, maybe I'll never cover the Courage again, and none of these soccer fans will know. And then like a few months later, she's like on the show with us. But that was one of my top 10 like most embarrassing moments thus far in my career, because I was like, you can never check your notes, people. Don't trust everyone or yourself. Double check a million times.
Or even the stage manager. You should be able to rely on them.
It's also a good example of making good first impressions, because you never know when you're going to see or have to talk to
right?
them.
Oh, Jessica,
That's
Heather, you're
fun.
back.
Oh, that's fun.
All right, LG, it's your turn.
Okay, I completely froze on air while opening a broadcast, like forgot how to speak completely. I had a Freudian slip and called Peter McNabb Penis McNabb.
No!
And I was shot by a t-shirt cannon while skating during an intermission race and completely taken out.
You didn't say Penis McNabb. There's
Penis
no way.
McNabb would have gone viral.
T-shirt
That would have
thing-
gone viral.
T-shirt thing did happen. I know that.
Yes, it's so bad. So good, but so bad. So Kyle Keith, one of the hosts at Altitude, actually did that one time.
Oh,
He was in
Penis
studio and he was
McNabb?
like, let's send it out to Penis
Oh my God.
how did that
Well,
not
then-
go viral?
It's on YouTube, but so then that was my biggest fear whenever, because Kyle and I would swap and he'd go on the road with the team and be the reporter. I would stay in the studio. I was like, okay, anytime I throw out to Peter, I'm like, Peter, do not say it. Don't say it, because it's in mine now.
Oh my God.
Oh
Wow.
my God.
Wait,
That's
so
hilarious.
So good.
oh wait.
Oh, I froze. I totally froze up one time opening
When?
an Avalanche game.
I
So
don't
like, you
believe it.
write out your script. I adore you. But it goes to show like you can get right back on the horse. But it was not good. I just like I always write my script to like talk over the scenics, and
yeah.
then you come on camera and you're like, good evening everyone. Like, this is like when people turn on their TVs, this is like how you get introduced to the broadcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, I'm like, and I started talking like tonight, like this is what's going on. I was in the dressing room earlier today, and Coach Bednar said, and then I was just like,
What did he say?
I just stopped and I was like, excuse me, and then I was like, well, for more on this broadcast, let's set it on up. Like, I was just like, so great, because our president, who's like one of my favorite people, Ken Miller, was like, you all right? I'm like, I don't know if I had a stroke or like what happened. It was so bad. It was like this like deafening silence. And I watched it back. It wasn't as bad as it felt, but it still wasn't good. So then I was like, I needed to do a hit right away. I'm like, just get me back on air so like I can get like back on the horse, because you're just like, oh, it's like deflating and demoralizing. And you're just like, how could I not like? But you guys know when that like red light comes on and it's like, the lights are turned down in the arena and it's like all that's on you, all those people are in the truck. Like,
Oh yeah.
sometimes. Yeah. So that happened, but
You can
I
feel
love
like
to tell about it.
you can feel it too when you start to pause.
Ooh.
Every like producer who's watching you starts to pause, and then the director's like, do I change the
Like,
do I change the scene? Like what are
You
we
gonna
doing?
fall
And then
down?
you're just
Like, what
everyone's
happened?
like, you stop. Is she
Yeah.
stopping? Like you can just
You
feel
okay?
the tension of like, please don't talk in my ear right now, or you're gonna make me explode. Like you just
Yeah. And luckily, like, our producer didn't say anything in my ear, and then he was like, you all right? I was like, I don't know.
Oh.
What happened? So it goes to show, like, it
happens
to everyone.
Everyone.
And you recover. It's okay.
That
We
next
always
hit-
get nervous too. Like, I feel like I talk to so many mentors that are like, the day that you stop feeling nervous or you don't have that adrenaline rush when the light comes on the camera, like that's the day you need to be done. Because you will always have that feeling, that those knots in your stomach, like no matter how many games you do, you're always going to have that nervous feeling, because we always want to, deliver the best content and do the best we can. We're our own worst critics, like the most cliche thing ever, but so
no,
true.
you're right. And you're part of a team that's like, there's so many people behind the scenes that like they're executing their jobs. And even if they don't, it's okay. Like, you're very forgiving because you're not perfect. Like, when we do on the fly live, like, you have these on cameras that you wrote, but they need to be succinct, and they need to be concise, and they need to be perfect because it's shows airing over and over and over. And you're just like, oh my God, this is like, okay, we got this. Like, sometimes we'll pre-record the on camera so they're just perfect and like everything matches up with the graphics and the videos, like, because it's a huge team effort. But then there are the times when it's live, and then the rest of the show is live, but you're just like, okay, like, here we go. Like, don't make everyone stay until 3 a.m. because I messed this up. So you do put a lot of pressure on yourself, and like, I still get so nervous, and I've been doing this for over a decade. I'm like, okay, yeah, wait, no, I've been doing this for a decade. Like, I'm good at this, right? Yeah, I think so. So it happens. You question yourself, you second guess yourself, and you get nervous. And I think that's like part of the rush. Like, don't we kind of love it because of that?
Oh yeah.
We're all masochists.
Yeah. It's like stand-up comedians. They're like addicted to the laughter. We're addicted to the perfect hit. That's what it is.
Yes, we are. We keep chasing it. Yeah, it's like a golfer.
Yeah.
You're like,
and you
oh,
nail it.
Shot.
You nail it and you're done. You're like, no one else really cares except for yourself. And you're just like,
no, they're like, good, you did your job. And you're like,
no, nobody else
was
really
good,
notices.
wasn't it?
Yeah. And it was like a really good part of my job. Like the most perfect part of the job that I did that night. Like, no.
So eloquent. And like the storytelling and everything matched up.
I said what I wanted to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Oh, I get it. It's like, only we can relate to that part of the job. Because people watching at home are like, well,
cool.
Yeah. Unless you're like, Sergio Dip and like, having the time of his life, who he did a tremendous job. But it goes to show, like, you can get nervous and it's okay, and you will mess up, and that is also okay.
John, you got anything else?
Yeah, I'm good. We covered a lot.
We're
a lot
good.
Of
We
really
covered a
good
lot,
stuff.
guys.
Yeah, that was great.
Well,
Seriously,
we
appreciate it.
seriously appreciate you. We got real with you. We had fun with you, and we thank you so much for coming on the show.
Aw,
We're
I
so
love you
excited for
guys.
everyone to watch and listen
Air
to this.
hugs.
So
No,
Thank you,
hugs.
LG.
that's all we've been
I
doing.
can't wait to see you guys in person. Hopefully it will happen sooner rather than
Soon,
later.
right?
Yes. But I'm glad you guys are all safe and healthy.
You
Thank
as well.
Thank you.
so
Appreciate that.
much.
I adore you guys. Have fun. Thank you.
Lauren Gardner was an amazing guest. She had so much to share. We got real with her, as we mentioned at the end of the episode, but we also got to have some fun as well. And I think she's the epitome of that perfect person, where it's a good balance of totally being yourself, but also admitting to some of the obstacles that you have to face. And that's what makes her who she is and allows her to be that real person and that genuine personality that is so contagious for everyone that watches her.
There's a lot to unpack from a lot of the advice and tips she was sharing, but when you said the word genuine, Abby, it's really the core of who she is as a person, and one of the biggest traits that's kind of propelled her to where she is now. You can't get that far in this business without being as genuine as she is. So to hear her kind of lay that out and explain it for everybody, and it's not an act, it's her. It's just like she's just this one big ball of special, and I'm so glad she shared that with everybody here today.
And while we're in an ever-changing industry, especially right now, to get to the big city, to get to those broadcasts, to start working for those networks, just like she said, there's not a specific blueprint. Everybody, maybe even listening to this podcast or listening to other things like this, they're like, well, just tell me, do this, do that, and then I'll get to where I need to be. And it's not that simple. And she really broke that down in a special way, especially being a political science major. There's a lot of people in the industry that you might not even know didn't study communication. They didn't study journalism. They didn't go throughout their entire life hoping to be a broadcaster. But someone like LG has really found her way into this space and thrives. And she remains the same. She remains a positive, good person. And we want you positive, good people to subscribe, to like, to give us all the love in the entire world on YouTube, on your favorite podcast networks. And remember, you can follow us at Sideline Pod. Leave some of those comments as well. We appreciate the support. It's been unbelievable to see all the downloads and the listens we've gotten. And big shout out to our guests for sharing this content and for all you guys supporting this as well. So don't forget to do that. Ladies, you're awesome. Let's
Thanks,
get the heck
John.
out of here.
Thank you.